Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back. So I'm doing my second profile of the day. This is the fourth deck I ever made. Kethis the Hidden Hand. I believe I made this, I want to say, in late 2019, early 2020. Um, Here's the proof of me having the deck in person. Uh, I would like to go through all the cards, but the thing is, me holding up every card one at a time is not. I just did it in the last deck profile and I don't love it. And then I could always do the overhead where like you don't see my face and I'm going over every card that I own. But like I have this proof to be like, hey, I own all these cards, so it's not just like me. What I think why people like seeing a physical deck profile is one, they like to see like different artworks or whatever, like foils or if you have older printings of a card. But I think on top of that, they like to see that you yourself actually have this deck. So it's one thing to say, oh yeah, just make a deck of this, blah blah. Because some people, their whole thing with the YouTube channel is they'll be like, today I'm gonna brew this deck, and they'll make it in the span of a day. But then like there's not any investment into that deck because they might play it for a day, a week, whatever, and then they'll never touch it again. It's like, do they really know that deck? Because they only really tested it out for a little bit. When I say that, like I know this deck, it's like I have it, I play with it, all that stuff. So I guess one of the new things I'm going to try to do at the beginning of these videos, these deck profiles, because this, we're still in the early parts of 2026. I plan on going through all my decks, showing them off. I now have 35 decks. The 35th one is on its way here. It sounds like a lot, but I keep coming up with ideas of what I want to do, deck combinations of colors that I haven't done yet. There's only a few left that I haven't done. It's technically after this one the only either monocolored or two color decks that I haven't done is I haven't done mono red, I haven't done a Gruul deck green red, and I haven't done a Selesnya green white deck. Those are the only three that I have not made yet. And at some point I will get to those. But anyway, all right. The deck cost for this is $490.46. That sounds crazy, but this is a legendary tribal deck. Almost every creature in here is a legendary creature, and it has a cost that can be reduced. I don't play any legendaries that can't be reduced in cost because the commander's ability, for anyone that doesn't know, Kethis the Hidden Hand says that legendary spells you cast cost one less to cast. Then you can exile two legendaries from your graveyard until in turn each legendary card in your graveyard you may cast this card from your graveyard. You may play this card from your graveyard. I don't generally use that effect. Generally, I have enough cards where I can just bring them back from the graveyard. The main part is just being able to reduce their cost by one is the good part. Okay, let's get to it. Like I said, I have this deck in person, so if you guys are like, does he really have this stuff? Yes, I do. Okay, so we have the artifacts. I'm only running 5. I have Abzan Monument. I love the monuments, so anytime I can run one of the monuments, I put it in here. For 2 mana, you can go grab a basic land of whatever 3 you're playing. By the way, my basic lands, I run 12 forests, 12 plains, 12 swamps. I'm Mr. Basic. I only run basic lands. You do not have to only run basic lands, is the thing. Once again, I'll keep reiterating. I will eventually get tired of saying it, but for now, because I'm getting back in the swing of uploading, if you think only running basic lands is stupid, guess what? You don't have to do it. I'm not telling you it's the only way to build the deck. Make it however you want. I have it the way I have it, but I have synergies of only running basics. There's good synergies of how I build my deck. I utilize the fact that I only run basics, and it also saves me money, so I can spend that money on other things to upgrade the deck. Okay, so we have Altered Dementia. You sack a creature, mill any player that many cards equal to its power. We generally mill ourselves. There's a few times where maybe you would have a creature strong enough you could mill your opponents out, but generally doesn't happen. Bullets of Citadel. I love this card anyway. It's a black staple for me, but it also goes in this deck because it's a legendary artifact, so it gets reduced by 1. You guys know what Bullets of Citadel does. Bounty Board. I explained this in the last video I just updated, but Bounty Board is now a new staple for me that goes in every deck. This is my Soul Ring. It doesn't do the same thing as Soul Ring, but what I'm saying is this is my new auto include in all my decks. You can tap it to add 1 mana of any color, or the cool part is you can pay 1, tap it, and put a bounty counter on target creature. You can only do that at sorcery speed. I like this because there's plenty of times where you just have 1 mana left over and you're like, I don't have anything to do with that. This is a cool political tool that you can use for just 1 mana. So it says whenever the creature dies that had a bounty counter on it, anybody that is an opponent of that controller of that creature gets to draw a card and gain 2 life. It adds that extra incentive to anybody at the table that's like, hey, I want this creature removed, and if you remove it, you gain 2 life and draw a card. We all do, so it's like cool in that way. And yeah, it's also a way to kind of like demonstrate to the board, because sometimes you'll be playing with like newer players. It's also a good way to be like, hey, this creature's a problem. Like, you guys should really get rid of it. The only thing that kind of sucks with this card is that a lot of people have exile removal, and bounty board doesn't trigger with that. But on the flip side, it also has a little bit more synergy with some decks, because there's a lot of decks out there that like to sacrifice their own creatures, and bounty board kind of works with that. So it's a really cool card, and I'm really happy with it. I'm just having a hard time finding all the copies that I need for all my decks. I think I still need another like 15 or 16 copies, so that's kind of a bummer. Wayfarer's Bauble, this pretty much goes in just about any of my decks, and I'm not the only one. Wayfarer's Bauble is a great card. Can pay 2, tap, sack, go grab the basic land that you want. Okay, let's get to the creatures. Let me take a drink of water real quick. So the last deck profile that I made was October, I think, of 2023. I would imagine this thing has changed a decent bit. Like, I'd say it's probably 75% still the same, but I've probably taken out, I would have to think, at least 15 cards out of this deck. 20 to spruce it up a little bit. So this guy wasn't out at that time. It's Atchik, Emerald Radian. For 6 mana, he's Insect Druid. When he enters, you make a 1/1 green insect for each artifact and or creature card in your graveyard, and whenever another insect you control dies, put a +1/+1 counter on him, and each opponent loses 1 life. That secondary part's not that important, at least in my opinion. The first part, because this is a legendary graveyard deck, so ideally what you want to do is you want to fill your graveyard with legendary creatures and then bring them back, reduce their cost, just interact with your graveyard. And don't get me wrong, there's more stuff I could put in here to go like heavy with that. But I saw him and I was like, he's legendary. He deals with the graveyard and he's in these colors. Cool. And he makes tokens. That's another theme that we have in here, is making creature tokens. Next is not a legendary creature, but too good to pass up for this deck. Angel of Suffering. For 5 mana and black, it has flying. If damage would be dealt to you, prevent the damage and mill twice that many cards. That's a way we can mill ourselves to get our graveyard loaded up. Azusa, Lost But Seeking. She's a great card in green anyway, but because she's a legendary, you can play 2 additional lands on each of your turns. That's great. Beladros Witherbloom, I love him. He's pretty much a green-black staple with me at this point. I just got 5 more copies of this card to throw in my other decks that run these colors. He's a 4/4. He is 7 mana flying. At the beginning of each upkeep, you make a 1/1 black and green pest that says when it dies, you gain a life. But the main part is you can pay 10 life, untap all lands you control. You can only do that once each turn, but that's a soft, in Yu-Gi-Oh! We would call that a soft once per turn, that his version of himself can only do that. But if you were to sacrifice him, get him in your graveyard, or bring him back out, or flicker him, he could do the effect all over again. We do have some life gain in this deck, not a lot, but we do have some. So that is a cool synergy that we can use to basically kind of like, it doesn't hurt us as bad to untap all the lands we draw. And we can get a lot of lands out. Next we have Kadira, Caller of the Small. She's a 3 mana creature, ogre ranger, sorry, not ogre, orc ranger. Trample 3/3. Whenever she deals combat damage to a player, for each token you control, make a 1/1 white rabbit creature token. So as you can see, I've only shown 5 creatures so far. We have 2 different creatures, and then this one, that's 3 creatures that can make 1/1 tokens. So that's good right there. Carmen, Cruel Sky Marcher. She's, by the way, I love Ixalan. I don't love Caverns of Ixalan quite as much as the original Ixalan or Rivals of Ixalan, but I still like it a lot. So that theme of the conquistador vampires, I'm just a sucker for. So any of that stuff, I'm just all for it. So it's a 2/2 with flying for 5 mana. Whenever a player sacks a permanent, put a +1/+1 counter on Carmen, and you gain 1 life. We do have some sacrifice stuff in this deck. And whenever she attacks, you can bring 1 target permanent from your graveyard back with mana value less than or equal to Carmen's power from your graveyard to the battlefield. So, if we have like a 3 mana creature, something like that, if someone sacrifices a permanent and she's got 3 power, we can then bring a 3 mana card from our graveyard back, 3 mana or less. So there's a lot of cool synergies there. I like her. Like I said, she fits really well because it's any time a player sacks a permanent. So it could be your opponent. They may sacrifice an Evolving Wilds or whatever. They may have an Aristocrats deck. So it's really good. Chatterfang Squirrel General for 3 mana. He has Forest Walk, which is good. And then anytime you would make a creature token, you basically, or anytime you would make a token, sorry, you make that many 1/1 green scroll creature tokens on top of it, which is like really insane. The fact of like, normally cards like this are replace effects that say, hey, if you were to make these instead. This is like, make what you were going to make, but also make that many 1/1 squirrels. So can't pass that up once again, showing the synergies here of like, we do tokens. You can sacrifice scrolls to do an ability, but that doesn't really matter all that much. Okay, Colossal Grave Reaver. This is, when I say new, it's fairly new, out of the last year from Tarkir, so that was a little under a year ago. It's 8 mana, which is a lot, but it's a 7/6 flying. Whenever it enters or attacks, you mill 3 cards, and whenever one or more creatures are put in your grave from the library, put one of them onto the battlefield. That is so good in this deck when like the CMC of these creatures maybe averages like 5. I mean, we have a high CMC of creatures, I feel like. Um, so he's good. Elenda the Dusk Rose, like I said, love the Conquistador vampires. Like anytime I see one, I'm like, yep, chef's kiss. So 1/1 with lifelink for 4 mana. Whenever another creature dies, you put a +1/+1 counter on her, and whenever she dies, you make that many 1/1 vampires with lifelink, where X is her power, so she can get big. She once again also can make 1/1s, which is important. Elishnorn, gotta run Elishnorn in here. She boosts your creatures by 2, reduces your opponent's creatures by 2, and has vigilance. Good in there. Amiria Shepherd, not a legendary, just like Colossal Grave Reaver, not a legendary. Because, like I said, I'm proving there's a few in here. So far, this is the 3rd non-legendary creature we've run into. Okay, so I said this in the last video because she was in the Kalia deck. But whenever a land enters your battlefield, if it's a plains, you can bring any permanent from your graveyard back to the battlefield. And if your land that entered is not a plains, you can bring the card back to your hand. Still a good card. And once again, we can make a lot of lands come in. Endrick Sar Master Breeder for 5 mana. He's a 2/2. Whenever you cast a creature spell, you make that many 1/1 black thralls, where X is that spell's mana value. And then you kind of just have to have a sack outlet, which there's a few sack outlets in here. Whenever you sacrifice 7 or more thralls, whenever you control 7 or more thralls, you have to sacrifice Endrick Sar. But there's enough ways in here where we can keep the count down. We can just sacrifice the tokens or use them for blockers or whatever we want to do. Eternal Witness, not a legendary creature. Whenever it enters, you grab a creature from your graveyard, any card from your graveyard back to your hand. Eternal Witness, I wish they would make a legendary version of this card, but as far as I know, they don't have one. It's just really handy because she's mainly in here. Any legendary creature I can get back out with the commander if I had to, but she's useful to get instants and sorceries back that are crucial that you would have no other way of getting them back. So Eternal Witness, just a good card. And I was gonna say, I say she. I was like, I'm pretty sure it's a girl. This is, I think, the newest card in here because this is out of the Lorwyn Eclipsed commander decks. It's Fair for Young Yu. It's a Treefolk Druid for 7 mana, which sounds like a lot. When it enters, create a number of 1/1 green saplings equal to the number of counters among creatures target player controls. Normally, we're going to pick ourselves because we have a decent amount of ways to make +1/+1 counters on here. But I suppose if we were going up against, another strategy, another type of deck, whatever, like we could be like, oh, we'll choose an opponent. But that's another card that can make 1/1s. Also, I do like that's an enter the battlefield effect. So if you have ways of sacrificing or getting it back out, whatever, it's going to get that. And then you can tap it to double the number of each kind of counter on target creature. That is insane to me, which we don't really have a way to give our stuff haste. Actually, I take that back. There's one creature in here that can give our stuff haste. But it's still, that's a really good card, I think. And like I said, the mana doesn't matter as much because we have ways of kind of circumventing that and cheating that. Okay, I was actually looking. I was like, there's a card that I'm running in like almost all my black decks now, but I don't think I threw in here because it is not a legendary. And I was like, technically kind of don't need it. It's like Marshland Bloodcaster. It's a witch that basically is like a mini Bolas' Citadel that you can pay 2 and then play the next card by paying life instead of its mana cost. That's a card I'm like, yeah, I could play it in here, but this is a graveyard deck, and it's like I have ways of cheating stuff out anyway. Okay, next we have Garda Turtle Bantu. 5 mana. He, once again, you've seen the amount of cards that basically either have, like, want things to be sacrificed, like Carmen, or you make enough tokens where you have sack fodder. So he's a 5/6 with Menace. Whenever he enters, you sacrifice any number of other permanents, then draw that many cards. This is good to get us draw power because this deck, I will admit to you, like it kind of lacks draw power a lot of times. And then whenever he dies or is put an X off the battlefield, you can put him into an owner's library third from the top. I think all the gods do that for More of the Spark, if I remember correctly. Um, Also, I want to check something real quick. I'm looking at the creatures in here, and I was like, I could have swore I took Savra out, but that might not be true. She just caught my eye out of the corner, and I'm like, I think I did take her out. I think I do have the Marshland girl in here. Yeah, and I'm pretty sure I took Savra out, so I might have just forgotten to update the deck. Um, give me like 10 seconds, guys, and I can just verify this. Because I saw the Marshland girl in here. Yeah, I took Savra out, so give me 1 second. I'm gonna take her out. I like Savra. For anyone that doesn't know, Savra, Queen of the Golgari. When you sack a black creature, you may pay 2 life. Each other player sacks a creature. Or when you sacrifice a green creature, you may gain 2 life. I like that effect. I think the reason I also took her out was because I think I want to make her a commander for a separate deck. And it's not that I can't do it. It's generally, if I run something as a commander, I kind of like it to feel separate and special. So I'll take it out of most decks that I run. There might be one exception to that, but really I don't run if I'm running a commander if there's a commander that I run that is the commander of a deck, I generally don't run it in the 99 of any other decks that I have. So anyway, I'm going to take this out real quick if it'll let me. If it'll let me. I know this is riveting to watch, and then let's put in the girl. Pretty sure she's a girl. Marshland Bloodcaster. Okay. She is in here. Like I said, I could have swore I was like throwing under all these decks. I just didn't see her. We're going to go with the original printing because I believe that's what's in here. Commander 2021. Okay. So that's in here. We will get to that. I'm going to double check one more thing because I was like, I didn't remember if I updated. I keep a mana box on my phone, and then I also do Architect. So I'm constantly updating my stuff and keeping everything up to date. And it's like if one fails, I have the other. Yeah, I think we're good. Yeah, so I must have updated on my phone, but didn't update it on here. Anyway, but yeah, Savra, Queen of Golgari. I don't know when I'm gonna do it, but at some point I think I'm gonna try to make her into her own deck. Okay, next we're at Goreclaw, Terror of Calcisma. So creature spells you cast cost 2 less to cast. Sorry, name's kind of in the way. With power 4 or greater costs 2 less to cast. And then whenever he attacks, each creature you control power 4 or greater gets +1/+1 against trample until end turn. That part's cool. So he basically becomes a 5/4 with trample for 4 mana while also reducing the cost of other cards. There's a lot of cards we have that are not power 4 or greater, so whatever, but there's a lot that are, so it's really handy when it actually does reduce the cost. And it's a legendary. It's just cool. Grismold the Dreadsewer. He's 3 mana. He's a 3/3 trample. To give your end step, each player makes a 1/1 green plant, and then whenever a creature token dies, put a +1/+1 counter on Grismold. We have lots of ways of having creature tokens die, and everyone getting a plant isn't that big of a deal to me. But the fact that I at least get one, he's a good card. I've heard a lot of people say that they would want to make him as a commander. He's interesting, but like I said, I think the other one is a little bit more, has more to it. This is just kind of one note. I think, so what's her name? Savra, Queen of Golgari. I think there's more to her. Honest Rustine. So once again, I don't think he might have been here in the last deck profile. No, that was 2024. So yeah, the last time I made this, he wouldn't have been in here either because he wasn't made yet. For 3 mana, he's a 3/2. When he enters the battlefield, return target creature from your graveyard to your hand. Once again, I mentioned Eternal Witness, so it's cool that this is a legendary that can return any creature from graveyard to your hand. The problem is there's no way to grab instants or sorceries, and generally I try not to run that many in this deck, but there's just some things you might need back. So, and then he also says creature spells you cast cost 1 less to cast, which is awesome. I mean, I love any kind of cost reduction effect. Kambal, Console of Allocation. He's a 2/3 for 3 mana. Whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell, that player loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. I love Kambal. I mentioned to you before, because we talked about life gain, talked about Beladros Witherbloom that needs to pay 10 life to do his effect. This is one of the cards that can help you gain life, so that's good. Kataki War's Wage. A lot of people have never seen this card. So it's a 2 mana from original, I believe that's Savers of Kamigawa. All artifacts have at the beginning of your upkeep sacrifice this artifact unless you pay one. We only run like 5 artifacts, so it ain't that big of a deal for us. But so many of my opponents are like, "Oh, I hate this card," and I'm like, "Hey, man, sorry. Like, you play a bunch of mana rocks. Like, that's on you. I have ways of dealing with that or interacting with them. So it's not the end of the world. I'm not telling them that they have to actually sacrifice it. They just got to pay one to keep it, so it can kind of hinder their turn. So I like it. It's a pain in the butt for them. I did not realize Kakusha has gone up this much in value. I mean, is there any other Cabal's gone up in value? I haven't looked at these in like a hot minute. Elishnorn, I just ordered one this morning because I need one for another deck. Azusa's net. Azusa kind of makes sense to be that expensive because she's just amazing in Commander, but like all these cards are just spiking up in value. Okay, Kakusho, I love him. 6 mana, flying, 5/5. Whenever Kakusho, the Star dies, each opponent loses 5 life. You gain life equal to life lost this way. This is a card that in 1v1, this card is nothing. But in Commander, this card's amazing because you could basically drain 15 life off your opponents and you gain 15 when it dies. That's, when I say 15 life, not from each one, but 5 from each one, and you gain 15 life. That's really good. And I love that artwork. That's up there with some of my favorite artwork in the game. Give me 1 second, guys. Okay. So those were all legendary. We keep it scrolling down. So Marshall and Bloodcaster, I've already kind of described what she did. She's not a legendary, but she would really help. She really helps this deck of just being able to, once again, circumvent mana cost by just paying life, which, like I said, we have life gain in here, so it's all good. Next, we have Mazarek, the Crowl Death Priest. I've heard a lot of people talk about playing this as a commander, although this would seem like really not only just busted, but like just one note as far as how it would play. Doesn't seem like it'd be a lot of diversity, but he's pretty good in here in the 99. Whenever a player sacks a permanent, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. So that's a way we can buff up stuff. And like I said, we have a decent amount of either sacrifice outlets or we have cards that get payoff off sacrifice, like Carmen was one, as well as Mazarek. Michiko Kanda, Truthseeker, I didn't even realize she's like $10. She's a good, I'm trying to think how to describe her. In theory, she should be really good, but it seems like anytime I have her out, she wards off people from actually getting. So I'll read what she does. For 4 mana, she's a 2/2. Whenever a source an opponent controls deals damage to you, that player sacks a permanent. Generally, when she comes out, either your opponents don't have the right deck to like be affected by that, or if they do, they're just not doing it to me because I don't think I've ever gotten her to actually make my opponent sacrifice a permanent. So in a way, that's kind of good because that means that no one's really doing damage to me, or they get rid of her first. But she's just a cool card. I always wanted to run her. They finally reprinted her a couple years back, but she's just always cool. Namada, Primeval Warden. He's a 3/4 with reach for 4 mana. If a creature and opponent controls would die, exile it instead. When you do, you make a 1/1 sapling. Once again, another way to make tokens. The other effects, you can pay a black and 1, sacrifice 2 saplings, draw a card. That's useful. The other one that says pay green, sack a sapling, and gets +2/+2 until end turn, less likely to be a thing that I ever do. Obnixilis the Fallen. If I was coming up with like an MVP legendary creature for the deck, it probably would be Obnixilis. I think I've won more games with him than any other card in this deck. So he is a 3/3 for 5 mana with landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield in your control, you may have target player lose 3 life. If you do, put 3 +1/+1 counters on Obnixilis. Yes, we have ways of getting in like 20 lands in one go, and then basically being like, okay, so like someone's gonna lose 40, someone else is gonna lose 20. Like it's really good. I've been able to kill people with this, or he's gotten insanely strong. Razaketh, the Foul-Blooded. I played him in my Kalia the Vast deck. I have him in here and maybe like 1 or 2 other decks. He's just really good, and he's one of the best sack outlets in the game. 8/8 Flying Trample, pay 2 life, sacrifice another creature, go grab any creature or any card you want out of your deck, put it into your hand. I put him in actually fairly recently because I felt like I needed a way not only to have a sacrifice outlet on a legendary, but also to, I think, like have a way to access my important power cards because I didn't really feel like I had a way of doing that. Reki, History of Kamigawa, he's actually fairly new in the sense of I think I put him in here a little under a year ago. Whenever you play a legendary spell, draw a card for 3 mana, you would think that should have already been in here, but I just kind of was like, well, I have a decent amount of like enchantments, artifacts that aren't legendary. I was like, I don't know if I get that. It sounds like I'd get a ton of payoff because I'm running mostly legendary creatures. But the thing is, like, a lot of times you cheat them into play, you don't actually cast them, so I wasn't sure. But I think he's good, especially for only 3 mana. Like, he's a good way to get some draws in. Okay, we got Shieldred, Whispering One. By the way, I would run the other Shieldred, Shieldred the Apocalypse from Dominaria United. I would run her, but she's like $70. I had one in the last like couple years, but I was needing money, so I sold her because I couldn't really justify the price tag. If she got reprinted and went down to, let's say, like $20 or less, it would take multiple reprints for that to happen. But if that were to happen, yeah, of course I'd pick one up for her because she'd be great. She's like a 4 mana 4/4 with Death Touch that also has the when your opponents draw, they lose two. When you draw, you gain two. Uh, if anyone ever wants to like laugh or just kind of be astounded by like how someone could get a ruling wrong, there's an episode. I hate to take you to his channel because he's an absolute jackass with the community, but Joe Johnson, Black Nito, he's got a video. So you just type in like I don't know, get what's their channel again? I don't even remember. Table Talk Jocks, which it used to be I Hate Your Deck, but then obviously he pissed off everybody and turned on his friend. So then it went to Table Talk Jocks. Anyway, I'm being long winded here, but he did a commander game where he had Shielder the Apocalypse as his commander, and he cheated because Shielder the Apocalypse has like 2 lines of text. Anyway, he did the effect of anytime someone drew a card, he was gaining 2 life as well as draining them for two, which is not how that card works. And then he was like, "Oh, I'm sorry if that affected the game." It's like, yeah, it did. Anyway, I don't like that dude. He's very petty and like basically claims that everyone's a racist and hates him when it's like, hey, you're just kind of an asshole. All right, anyway, Shieldred the Whispering One, Swamp Walk, 6/6 for 7 mana. At the beginning of your upkeep, return a creature from your graveyard to the battlefield. And at the beginning of each person's upkeep, that player sacks a creature. I gotta have the Predators in here. I love Shieldred and I love Elishnorn. The one that I didn't love for a long time was Vorinclex, and I still don't love him. But I kept noticing my buddy Brendan was a hypocrite, and he would play this card, and then I finally played it against him, and then he was like, "Oh, I hate Vorinclex." I'm like, "I've seen you use this card." I was like, "I'm tired of this hypocrisy." So I run him now, and I'm like, whatever. So I don't complain about it anymore. And I am happy they took him off the game changers list because I don't want to see any of the original Predators gone. Jinga Taxes definitely didn't deserve it because it was 10 mana, and I remember telling my buddies when they were like, "Oh, Jinka Taxes game changer," I said, I've never played that card. I was like, I've ran it for years and never once gotten a chance to play it. I think now I have, but at the time that it was put on the game changer list, I think I had still never actually gotten a chance to put it into play. All right, Sun Titan, not a legendary, but Sun Titan's too good because of the graveyard synergy to grab a permanent 3 mana or less from graveyard, put it in the battlefield. Serac and Goreclaw, this is our haste enabler. So 6 mana, 6/5 trample. Other creatures you control have trample whenever another non-token creature enters. It gets a +1/+1 counter and gains haste until end of turn. So that's pretty good. Teysa Karlov can double death triggers. The creature tokens getting Vigilance and Lifelink sounds like it would be good, but in general, I actually don't swing with that many tokens. I kind of just use them and abuse them. So, but her death trigger double is pretty handy. Thales Reverent Medium, give each end step, which is nice that it's each end step and not just your own. You make a 1/1 white spirit with flying for the number of creatures that you create, number of tokens you created this turn. So that can be really handy because generally, as you've seen, we make a lot. Gitrog Monster, Death Touch, 6/6 for 5 mana. At the beginning of your upkeep, you have to sacrifice Gitrog unless you sacrifice a land. We pretty much always have lands to sacrifice. Gives you an additional land drop on each of your turns, and then if a land would enter your graveyard from anywhere, you get to draw a card, as long as it's like whenever one or more lands. So each instance of a land hitting your graveyard, you get to draw a card every time that it happens, not for every land, if that makes sense. So yeah, he's good. Always liked Gitrog. Torsten, founder of Benalia, I don't know how you say that. So when this thing enters, you reveal the top 7 cards of your library, put any number of creatures or lands from among them into your hand. So in a way, that's kind of a way to draw cards, which is good. And then whenever it dies, you make 7 1/1 white soldier creature tokens. That's just kind of an extra bonus. And it's a 7/7, so it's got good stats as well. So really like that. Underrealm Lich, this is the second to last non-legendary creature in here. can't resist. Underrealm Lich is just, as soon as I saw my buddy Jesse use this card, I was like, this just looks like so much fun. I was like, I'm dying to put this in a deck. I actually think he was the inspiration for me wanting to like make this deck. I was like, what could I do with like a graveyard deck? He says if you would draw a card, instead look at the top 3 cards of your library, put one of those into your hand, the rest into the graveyard, and then you can pay 4 life to give him indestructible until end turn. That part's kind of cool because you can save him, but really it's just the being able to get more cards in your graveyard, kind of, have a good way of seeing what you're going to draw and then keeping what you need and then put the important things in your graveyard. Veto, Thorn of the Dust grows whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life. It's Sanguine Bond and a body for 2 less mana, which is really good. The lifelink effect, I don't think I ever really do. Next, we have Vorinclex, like I mentioned before. He's 8 mana, 7/6, trample. Whenever you tap a land for mana, you add 1 mana of any land, any type that land can produce, and then if an opponent does the same, their land stays tapped for a whole turn, which is good. And the cool thing about that is even if Vorinclex leaves the field, if he saw those lands tapped, those lands stay tapped. Some people mess that ruling up. World Shaper, if it attacks, you put the top 3 cards of your library in your graveyard, or I think the updated text would say mill 3 cards. And then whenever it dies, you put all lands from your graveyard onto the battlefield tapped. That's the important part, really, and that's why World Shaper is still in this deck, is because it's really nice to be able to fill up your deck, just mill yourself out, and then be like, oh, and I'll get World Shaper out, sacrifice it, and bring all those lands onto the battlefield tapped, and then trigger things like Op Nixilis. And a few other things. Yargle and Multani, cool card. 6 mana, it's an 18/6. It doesn't have any abilities, but this is a card that we can use with, I mean, there's a few synergies in here. Altar of Dementia is one of them. But yeah, really like this card. Yosei the Morningstar, 6 mana, 5/5 flying. Whenever it dies, target player skips their next untap step, and then you can tap up to 5 target permanents that player controls. This is one of the cards that I normally always synergize with my death triggers of Teysa, or is it Orzhov Sign? Or, no, it's Teysa Karlov, sorry. Yeah, this is normally one that I have at the same time as her, and then it's like, hey, I can either pick the same person twice, or I can pick 2 different players and basically make them both skip their untap steps and tap 5 things. So Yosei, I think, is still pretty useful. All right, on to the enchantments. I didn't say this before. I think Kalia was a bracket 4 and Kethis is bracket 3. I don't really go by the brackets at all. Like, we literally, as a friends group, we never discuss them. I think the brackets are mostly pretty... They're well intended, but I don't think they actually do anything. And that's kind of like a whole nother discussion. But basically what I would say is I have some decks that I'm like, this deck is labeled as a bracket, like, I think my elf deck is labeled as like a bracket 2 or 3. And I'm like, this is like one of the nastiest decks I have because I make my opponents discard cards and I make an elf army. And then I go crazy and mana ramping by like, I'll get a green for each elf I control. And then it's like, I'll play Biorhythm, which just came off the ban list. And I'm happy I had my copies in advance because I was smart and I knew all those cards could be coming off. But anyway, so they'll say that that is like a bracket 2 or 3, but then they'll say my pirate deck, which absolutely sucks, is a bracket 4 because I run like Bolas' Citadel in there. So that logic doesn't track with me. So it's not really a good indication of what an actual like tier level is of a deck. You might run certain cards that are game changers, but that doesn't mean that your deck is like that powerful. It all depends. They talk about tutors. If I'm running tutors that get pirates, that's not the same thing as running tutors to get Thassa's Oracle or something else, whatever. Anyway, let's continue. So I have Aura Shards in here. Whenever a creature enters, you blow up an artifact or enchantment. In this deck, that can get pretty nuts because we can cheat out a lot of creatures. Cather's Crusade, broken white card. If a creature enters, you put a +1/+1 to each creature you control. Death's Presence, if a creature of yours dies, you put that many +1/+1 counters on any creature you control equal to that creature's power. That works with well, I can't even think of his name, Yargle and Multani. That helps a lot. Moldavine Reclamation, if a creature you control dies, you gain 1 life, draw a card. That's good. Gives us life gain, gives us draw power. Primal Vigor, this card is going up in price, but I don't want to say I started the trend, but I got tired of looking at Doubling Season for like, it was like $40-50. And I was like, I don't want to pay that. And then like Parallel Lives was a token doubler, and I have 1 copy, and it was in my Snake deck, and I was like, I can't justify spending another $25-30 on a token doubler. So I was like, for 1 more mana, I can do Primal Vigor. Now, Primal Vigor affects everybody, so it gives your opponents double the tokens, and it gives them double the +1/+1 counters as well. But I was like, for the most part, I don't really care because like that is my focus of this deck is like I make tokens and I put +1/+1 counters on my creatures. It's not that my opponents aren't necessarily going to do the same, but like I don't feel like they're going to be as focused on that strategy as I am with it. So yeah, I like it. Like I said, it's when I picked these cards up, I think they were like $7 or $8. They've gone up a couple bucks, but really they just need to reprint some of these other cards. But Primal Vigor, I think, is a when I say budget option, $12, $13 is not exactly budget, but in the grand scheme of things in Magic, it's kind of a budget card. Smile at Death. This is a new addition from Tarkir Dragonstorm. I love this card, and there's not that many decks that actually utilize it all that much, but this is one that I can utilize it. For 5 mana, at the beginning of your upkeep, bring back 2 creatures from your graveyard with power 2 or less. Put a +1/+1 counter on each of those creatures. It's not saying the total power, it's saying 2 creatures that each of those have power 2 or less. So if you look back here, we might be able to count real quick. Okay, Azusa qualifies, Carmen qualifies, Alenda qualifies, Endrick Sar qualifies, Eternal Witness qualifies. Is that 5? Sorry, I feel like I already screwed myself up. 3, 4, 5. Kambal, Kataki Warwage, Mazarek, Michiko Kanda, Reki. That's 10. Teysa Karlov makes 11. Vito makes 12. Okay, so it's 12 different creatures in here, power 2 or less. That may not sound like a lot, but I mean, that's over 1 in every 10 cards, more like 1 in every 9 cards is going to be one of those. So it's nice to be able to be like, hey, I milled a lot of cards. It's like, and I can keep bringing these back every turn and using them as sacrifice fodder or whatever I want to do with them, or use them as blockers and just keep getting them back. So all of that's good. Okay, lands I already talked to you about. We'll finish up with the sorceries. So got a Boundless Realms. This is a green staple for me for 7 mana, which is a lot. But whatever your land count is, you go grab that many basic lands from your library, put them onto the battlefield tapped. That's good for us. Cultivate, go grab 2 basic lands. Basically what you normally do is you're like, hey, I'm missing this color. I'll grab this basic land, put it on the battlefield tapped, and then I'll put another one into my hand. I like Cultivate because it helps you mana fix as far as what you're looking for land-wise. Debt to the Deathless. This is my favorite Orzhov card in the game. And what I love about this is I don't normally love to run X spells, but Debt to the Deathless, I can get so many lands in here that I can just kill someone straight up with just Debt to the Deathless alone, which is awesome. Each opponent loses 2 times X life. You gain life equals to life lost this way. I mean, I'm going to throw a hypothetical out here that's not that hard, and I've gotten this before. Let's say I had 14 lands because I just did some crazy ramp thing or brought lands from my graveyard back. So I do the double white, double black, and then I put 10 into X. Each opponent loses 2 times X life, so each opponent loses 20 life, and I gain 40. Well, let's say if I had 3 players, I'd gain 60 life off of that. It's hard to beat that with that card. It's just so cool. Eerie Ultimatum, I think, is. I was talking about Underrealm Lich before, the inspiration I want to build this deck. I think Eerie Ultimatum, as soon as I saw the card, I said, I have to make a graveyard deck in white, black, green. Return any number of permanent cards with different names from your graveyard to the battlefield. In Commander, every permanent you control or in your graveyard has a different name except for basic lands. So that was perfect. Eldritch Evolution. And so with Eerie Ultimatum, it also doesn't exile itself when it gets done. A lot of ultimatums will exile when they resolve. This one doesn't, so we can use it and then use it again if we had to. That, you want to say the golden pig of the deck, as Mitch from Commander's Course like to say. This has the highest ceiling of any card in the deck because we can bring back our whole deck if we milled ourselves. Eldritch Evolution, this is a green card. It's not a staple necessarily. I love to run it as long as like my creatures have a wide mana range, and I plan on having creatures out there. As an additional cost to cast Eldritch Evolution, you sack a creature and go grab a creature with mana value +2 or less from that card's mana value. So for instance, if I sacrificed a 3 mana creature, I could go grab any creature from my deck that's 5 mana or less and just put it on the battlefield. Cool thing about Eldritch Evolution is tokens have a mana value of 0, so I could still sacrifice a token and get out a Kataki War's Wage or something else that I had. So I like that. It does exile when it gets done, so you can only use it once, but that's all right. Farseek lets you grab any basic land that's not a forest. That's okay. Lich Knight's Conquest. This is a card that I don't think many people... Sorry, I'm going to get a drink real quick. this is the reason why, in my opinion, you would come to this channel, is because, or at least this videos, is because this is not a card that I would find on EDH Rec. I look at EDH Rec as a guide. So like when I build a deck, I'll just let you guys know. I look at EDH Rec. I might occasionally look up like a deck profile, but I generally don't do that. Um, People just don't build decks the way I do. A lot of people just they go into strategies and I'm like, I don't like that. But a lot of times I'll go into Google Images and just be like, okay, what comes up when people like bring up this commander. But this is a card that I just saw out of Wilds of Eldraine. I was like, I think I could put that in my deck and make that work. So it's 5 mana, sacrifice any number of artifacts, enchantments, and or tokens, that's the key word, return that many creatures from your graveyard to the battlefield. This is one of the ways we can make like big creature boards, because let's say like I got 20 something cards in my graveyard. I could easily make like 4 or 5 token creatures, play this card, sacrifice them all, and get out like my whole graveyard army, which is so nice. We got Night's Whisper, draw 2 cards, gain or lose 2 life, which that's like a black staple for me. Rampant Growth, you know what that does. Scape Shift, this card's $60 on Card Kingdom. I'm not surprised, and I have this card in here. I mean, I could prove it to you, but I don't even feel the need to do that. But that card needs to be reprinted. I might think about selling it soon because like that card value is just insane. But the reason it's in here, and the reason I can't justify taking it out or selling it right now, is because the sacrifice part triggers so many things for us, cards that want things to be sacrificed. But sacrifice any number of lands, search your library for up to that many land cards, and put them on the battlefield tapped. We have cards that care about landfall, and then we also, like I said, get that benefit. Like I said, Ob Nixilis gets a benefit from lands entering. We have a few other things, but the sacrifice part is awesome. And then it also puts lands in our graveyard, which, like I said, we can use World Shaper to bring stuff back. And then this is also fairly new, and it sounds stupid. Urza's Ruinous Blast. This is a card that most people have been running this deck for a long time. I was trying to run other board wipes because I was like, I don't want my non-legendary stuff to get exiled, because I run a decent amount of some artifacts that aren't legendaries, enchantments that aren't legendary, and some creatures that aren't legendary. But now I've made some changes to this. This deck used to run more enchantments. I kind of fine-tuned them. This deck used to run a little bit more artifacts. I fine-tuned that. So I got 5 artifacts and 6 enchantments, and one of those artifacts is legendary. I could run more legendary artifacts, I just don't. But yeah, and then like I said, I got a handful of creatures that aren't legendary. I mean, if we want to count these up real quick, we got World Shaper, Underrealm Lich, Sun Titan, Marshland Bloodcaster, Eternal Witness, that's 5, Emeria Shepherd is 6, Colossal Grave Reaper is 7, and Angel of Suffering is 8. So I have 8 non-legendary creatures in here. So anyway, there's some cards, but for the most part, you have to have a legendary creature or planeswalker to cast the card, but exile and non-land permanents that aren't legendary. That's really good because it can, for the most part, be a one-sided board wipe for us, which is awesome. So anyway, that is the deck profile. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And yeah, I will catch you on the next one. I will probably be uploading another 2 or 3 either later this evening or tomorrow. But I'm just going through my decks. Like I said, I have 35 decks at the moment, and it's been a while since I've uploaded a lot of these, so I just want to give them out there, get the update, and I will have the deck list linked below the video so you guys can look at it, because I know a lot of people ask what they're like, where's your deck list at? I'm like, okay, yeah. Some of the videos from the past, I didn't always have the deck list. So anyway, that's it for now. I'll see you on the next one. And if you guys have any comments as far as like, they don't have to be constructive. You can have questions about the deck. Those I appreciate. I don't care for like, you're a moron for running only the basic lands. It's like, dude, I don't know how many times I have to say, it's what I like. You don't have to do that. I'm not telling you someone's crazy for running non-basic lands. I'm just saying it's just not what I like. So anyway, hope you can respect me for that. Have a good one, y'all. Peace.